If they never had documents, if they entered the country illegally, they were detained. There was no question about it. They were not given leave or anything. They were put in the detention centre. The food was luxurious. It really was. And I find that very unfair. I felt like I was just banging my head against a brick wall. So for my own sanity, for my own mental health, I resigned.
Hi everybody, and welcome back to Nick Talks. This episode's returning guest, an amazing guest, is a gentleman you should have checked out last week on the podcast. He's a former prison officer, but he's also a former something else as well. But before we get into that, let me welcome Jason Hall. How are you doing, Jason?
Hi, Nick. Nice to speak to you again.
Thank you for last week. That was a thoroughly good conversation. I learned a lot about the prison service, and so did many other people, as you can tell by the comments on the video. But this week, I wanted to talk about another job you've done, which was an immigration officer. Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, under Tony Blair's government, I was a senior immigration detention officer, and I'm not sure whether it matters where probably won't say which part of the country I worked in, but it was a very busy place, extremely busy, more towards London. So, what would you like to know, Nick, about?
What did the job entail? And then we can expand out there. So what does an immigration detention officer, what does that mean? I've got no idea.
Right. Completely different to that of a immigration officer. That somebody said to me, oh, basically you just stamp passports all day, don't you? No, it's a completely different job to what an immigration officer does. You know, the ones that you would see at the airports, you know, that you have to pass through and they could question you, etc., etc. No, my job was to detain illegal immigrants, terrorists, and people wanted on international arrest warrants. And I headed a team of 100 officers approximately. But on each shift, you'd probably be lucky to have 25 officers with you. So I was one of 4 senior officers. So, you know, the numbers, because of holidays and different shifts, you haven't got 100 officers working with you at once. So yes, dangerous job. And I would say myself and a lot of my officers were assaulted on a day-to-day basis. It was part of the job, which it shouldn't have been, but it was.
Well, I find that quite, I was going to say, I find that quite surprising, because you would be in a secure place. You've got backup. Those people are coming, you know, would be individuals, maybe, you know, 1 or 2 or 3 of them. I thought if they were being stopped and questioned and they turned out they were wanted or something like that, I thought that would be a done deal. I didn't think you would be at that much risk working there. Were these people just straight to violence because we're trying to escape? How did that manifest itself?
I'm not saying that all immigrants are dangerous, and I'm not saying that they're all, you know, I'm not saying that all would assault you, but on a lot of occasions, on a day-to-day basis, because I was basically the response. So with a team of response officers, I actually was the officer that would handcuff and take them away to detention. So yeah, dangerous job. You're dealing with some very dangerous people, terrorists, people who are wanted on international arrest warrants. They don't want to be caught, do they? So when you've surprised them, when they've come in on a flight, I've given a bit away there, haven't I? When they've come in on a flight, unbeknown to them, the authorities already know that they're on that flight.
Even I know that. Why don't they know that? I've seen enough movies to know if you're flying somewhere and you're wanted, that the authorities know you're flying. You've got are looking and would be waiting for you. Even I know that. Why don't they know that?
Maybe sometimes they've been abroad for so many years and evaded capture or sentencing, or yeah, well, actually they've probably already been sentenced without them being at the court in their absence. But I think sometimes they're just giving up. Maybe they've run out of money, they burnt their bridges in another country, and they probably feel it was safer to come back home. So yeah, there's obviously varying reasons why people perhaps don't know. I mean, there probably are those that genuinely don't know. I'll give you one instance, Nick. I was on duty and we had some intelligence with regard to two males, and they had raped a young girl under the age of, I think it was under the age of 14. So it's definitely under the age of 16. And they're on a cruise ship. And these two men boarded a plane to back to England, to the UK. And obviously the authorities knew that. So unbeknown to them, they had a meeting party waiting for them, and they were very shocked. And yes, it makes you feel proud when you can do things like that. You know, the intelligence is there.
If you'd have told me that story and without telling me your job, I would have presumed the police are waiting for them. I didn't realize we had.
Yeah, you are correct, Nick. But they've got to be put into detention, haven't they, as well? So they were put into detention at our establishment, and then I handed those detainees over to they weren't. I think they were plainclothed police officers. I'm not sure what department they were from, but I can't remember now. But yes, of course they are. They're dealt with by the police. Yeah, but they have to be detained.
Yeah, so they have to be detained by you because they're crossing an international border, and it's your job to protect that border.
Yes, and if there's an international arrest warrant been issued for them, then they're detained. So yeah, I'm not sure how many years they spent in prison, but I hope that they got their justice dealt to them for what they did to that young girl on a cruise ship.
So I take it,
And I hope it gave the parents some satisfaction.
yeah. So they're the exceptional cases. What was the bread and butter? What was the bread and butter issues you were dealing with?
Okay, your bread and butter is asylum seekers, people that have entered the country illegally. So, they get to the customs and excise section at the airport, or passport control, whatever, and they haven't got the paperwork. But it makes you wonder, how did they get on the plane at the other end if they didn't have a passport? Yeah. So you know what happens, Nick. I'm not going to tell you how to suck eggs. Yeah. They deliberately get rid of their documents and then claim asylum. So there you go. But they have to be detained because we don't know who they are. Well, that was then. That was under Tony Blair's government. But I believe things have changed a great deal now with to how immigrants are now dealt with.
Oh, they're not arrested anymore now. They're taken to four-star hotels.
I can honestly say I wasn't ever a fan of Tony Blair, don't get me wrong. But things were done a lot better and more efficiently then. Before Tony Blair opened up the borders in 2004, then things went haywire and I resigned. I actually resigned from my job in the end because I couldn't do my job properly. I felt like my hands were tied behind my back. A lot of my officers also that worked with me, they also resigned. So, yeah. So
When you say you're,
I mean I've got to be careful. I don't want to.
yeah, you need to be careful. I get that.
Yeah, I have to be careful what I say. Yeah, yeah.
When you say your hands are tied behind your back, can you go into that any more detail, or don't you want to talk about that?
It was Do you know, it's like politics, Nick. We all think like, oh, why is the government doing this? Why are they doing that? Where's the common sense? Because you and I, and the majority of the public, we know what common sense is because our natural spirit, our natural energy tells us what's right and what's wrong. Do you agree? And then when the government goes against the grain and does things that are absolutely ridiculous, you know then that there's a conspiracy. Well, call it a conspiracy if you want, but it's deliberate. Why they're, placing new measures, new policies all of a sudden, and you think, why? Why are they doing this? And then you find that your job becomes just impractical. Just what's the point? It was like you're just there just to be there. You couldn't actually do your job properly, what you were originally trained to do. I've got honestly, Nick, I've got to be really careful what I say here. Otherwise, I'll have Tony Blair after me.
I worked for council for 10 years. I know exactly what it's like working for an organization that doesn't understand common sense, that seems just to be going out of their way to make everything worse and everything harder. But as long as you tick those boxes, as long as those boxes get ticked, everything's
You'll
hunky
get
dory.
paid,
Yes, you get
and you'll
paid.
get paid. And I was one of those that would like, well, I wasn't directly in contact with the Home Office, obviously, but I was in contact with Home Office officials, if you understand that. So I would always tell them how it was, and they didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to know, and I felt like I was just banging my head against a brick wall. So, for my own sanity, for my own mental health, I resigned. And I'm a lot happier today than I was when I worked in immigration. I've got my own business now, so yeah. So there you go. There is one particular person, but as I said, I've got to be really careful.
I don't want you to name anybody. Forget. I don't want you to name it. The follow up question was going to be, what's the service like compared to over 25 years ago when you were in it?
Okay, so yes, we did when I was a senior immigration detention officer. We were detaining people. If they never had documents, if they entered the country illegally, they were detained. There was no question about it. They were not given leave or anything. They were put in the detention centre, awaiting, and some would be there for maybe 2 years in the detention centre, waiting for a decision to be made on their application for asylum. So I think things have really drastically changed since my day. Um, it seems now that people are just being allowed to just come into the country without documents. You and I need a passport to go to, say, France or wherever. If we haven't, we'll get turned around and we'll sent back on the next plane, aren't we?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So it seems to be one rule for one and one rule for another. And then you've got people that say, "Oh yeah, but it's their human rights. It's their human rights." Well, what about our human rights? You know, what about the safety of the British people? Uh, I'm not against human beings, Nick. Don't get me wrong. We are all human, but we we all need to comply to the same laws and regulations. Why should some people be allowed to come into the country? We don't know who they are. We don't know what they've done. There's obviously a very good reason why they've left their own country. Sometimes it could be that people have burnt their bridges and they've maybe committed serious crimes. People, criminals or gangsters or whatever, are probably looking for them. So they've thought, well, let's go to another country and, claim asylum. There are other people that want a better life. I get that. I totally get it. But we can't save the world as a little country that we are, Nick. We just can't do it. So I know I've gone off the track a little bit there, but where's the common sense gone? It seems to have all gone out the window. There is no common sense.
I think what happens is politicians and civil servants make decisions these days for short-term benefits and don't give any thought to the medium to long term. So I think in the case we've just discussed, I think civil servants or politicians said this is costing us a fortune, locking up asylum seekers, locking up people who come to the country legal. We could save millions if we stopped locking them up. Then that sent a signal around the world. Come to the UK, you don't get locked up. And suddenly we're spending billions on hotels because somebody was trying to save 100 million somewhere.
So sorry, Nick, don't mean to interrupt you, but where's the savings? There are no savings, are there?
There is nothing. Yeah.
The policy that we've got now is where I believe we're encouraging illegal immigration into the country. And, I watched something today on Twitter X, the amount of food that you may have watched it yourself, all the food being served to the immigrants, asylum seekers, whatever you want to call them, look far better than most people get each day, in their homes. And I will say this, at the detention centre where I worked, at the no, I'm not going to name where I worked. The food was luxurious. It really was. And I find that very unfair to the British people that are paying their taxes, working hard, but when it comes to their own meals at home, they can't afford luxuries like that. So where's the balance? It's well out of balance, isn't it? Completely. I'm not saying they shouldn't be fed, Nick. Of course they should. Yeah, but it's all.
I think they only should be fed if there's been a delay in us sending them back within the 6 hours. The new law says they should be sent back in. So if we've got to keep them more than 6 hours, we have to feed them. But I would like a new law.
Right, Nick, how do we send them back if we don't know where they've come from?
Oh, yeah. That's probably easier to work out than we think. So the first thing is, where do you come from? Oh, I'm not telling you. That's fine. You're going to the Ascension Islands. So you're going to the Ascension Islands, or we're going to send you home. Where do you want to go to? Ascension Islands?
But that's not happening, is it? That's not happening, Nick, is it?
No, I mean that's me being a little bit flippant. I mean we're far away from doing that. Even someone who says I'm from Syria and I'm claiming asylum, even if they tell us where they're from, we never send them home. There was a guy in court the other day, Nigerian guy. I think he was there for rape. And we can't send him back to Nigeria because he's now decided he's gay. He's married in the UK and he's got a child by another woman in the UK. But now he says he's gay. We can't send him back to his own country, Nigeria. And we know he lives there and he tells us he lived there. But because he's gay, we can't send him back. That's how pathetic our system has become.
Yeah. A lot of immigrants will say that they're from a different country to what they originated from, and that's purely because the laws are different back in their own countries. Let's say we've got an agreement with the country that they're from originally to send them back. But no, they'll get around that and they'll say, no, I'm from there. And then you've got to prove it. So they get to stay. So they know the system. They manipulate the system. Yes, they do. Absolutely. And yes, clever solicitors, immigration solicitors, they're on their side. So are they helping? They're not really helping the situation for Britain. No, they're helping themselves because they're earning a lot of money from it. So yeah, there is a lot of money to be earned in immigration. Hoteliers.
Yep, hoteliers.
Some hoteliers are making an absolute fortune.
Yeah. So hoteliers, taxi firms, coaches, caterings, private doctors, private dentists, cleaners, chefs, security.
All the security.
Everybody's making a fortune apart from the taxpayer.
Yeah, it's costing the taxpayer an absolute fortune. And it's, I don't know how much longer we can go on with this. to be honest, Nick, as a country. I really don't.
It's that the mood is changing. Just this last week, we've had the Tories leak that at their summer conference they're going to announce they're going to pull out the ECHR. We've got some Labour grandees now talking about we need to leave the European Court of Human Rights, ECHR. We've got Reform, who looks like they could win the next election. They've already committed to pulling out the ECHR. The Overton window has changed because the people, we've seen the demonstrations outside the hotels, we've seen the flag protests. People have had enough, and governments and political parties are going, if we don't do something, we're going to see mass violence that we can't control. So they're being forced to do something.
I don't think violence is the answer. It can never be the answer, but I do see the frustrations of the public. I believe that we should vote with our feet, and we need a government, a leader, um, that will do exactly what we want them to do. So we're the sovereign people. So we vote for a party, and basically, since World War II, they've never really done what they promised to set out to do, and you know that, Nick. So a lot of people get disheartened, and they think, well, what's the point in voting anyway? They never do what they say they're going to do. So we actually do need an honest. He says, honest leader, maybe even a dictator for a few years, just to get the country back in order. I've heard that as well. It might need a dictator for a few years to get this country back in shape, because it's certainly got. Oh, I was in a taxi the other day, and Muslim driver, nice man, had a good chat with him, and he said, and I don't mean to swear, and I'll just say, he said the country's gone to SHIT, hasn't it? I went, yeah, and even he was saying it.
Yeah. It's, I mean, you'd have to be blind. I mean, the country's been slowly declining all my life, but it was such a slow decline, most people couldn't see it. But this last decade,
Do you know, Nick? I have a theory. Well, it's not a theory. I think I can see the truth of what's happened over the years. Obviously, it's a gradual stepping stones, isn't it? Because let's be honest, if they change things overnight in big steps, the country would kick off, wouldn't it? So they have to do things gradually. And don't believe that a prime minister or a president runs the country that they're in. I truly believe that they do as they're told by the trillionaires and the elite that run our world. So this is why I've lost faith in parties, political parties. I was a member of a party, um, yes, but now I'm non-partisan because I'm still yet to make up my mind who I'm truly going to back to get this country back in order and to have a fair immigration system that works for everyone, all of us. Because what we've got now, it's just not working. I mean, I was it 650 the other day. Nigel Farage had a post on Twitter about these immigrants and coming off the boats, and I was, what's so planned? This isn't just happening, Nick. It's a globalization plan being implemented by the World Economic Forum, not just in Britain. It's happening in France, Germany, everywhere. It's happening all over the world. America. I've got friends in America. I lived in America for 3 years. They tell me the same thing. The borders have been, I mean, not under Trump, but the borders were wide open under Biden. So yeah, they can all see it. We can all see it, but how are we going to stop it? How we all get? Well, I think we all need to unite as people, regardless of our political, party. I don't think one political party is enough to change things. I think only the citizens, the people, the sovereign people of each country are going to change things and stick together. Because it's dividing, divide, rule, conquer, and this is how the World Economic Forum control us, by dividing us all. So, regardless of our faith, our colour of our skin, the language that we speak, we all need to unite together as people to get a fair system for everybody, because people's safety, security is being, well, I mean, I read was another rate, and this is occurring like on a daily basis now. Um, Even on the Isle of Wight, my family, have had places on the Isle of Wight, and I also, well, I work. I don't want to say which place on the Isle of Wight, but I've got connection with the Isle of Wight, and um, even on the island, on the Isle of Wight, it's the crime level has increased drastically, especially in Ryde. There are drug barons basically ruling the streets. I've never seen anything like that on the Isle of Wight.
Yeah, it's everywhere. It's every town in every city.
Happening all over, Nick, even to lovely places like the Isle of Wight. We've had a big influx of immigrants onto the island. Who's paying for them to live? Who's paying? Well, it's the taxpayer. They're not paying any council tax.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Everyone keeps saying you can't. If you import the third world, you become the third world, and that's what we're becoming.
Yeah. And standards are lowering. People's standards of life are lowering. And then obviously you get people say, oh, yeah, it's because of Brexit. And nothing to do with Brexit. Absolutely nothing to do with Brexit.
This is a Western European.
Yeah. It's happening all. I mean, look at France now and look at Paris. I mean, my God, what a beautiful place it used to be. Not anymore. It's tragic, absolutely tragic what's happening to Britain and Europe and America. But hopefully Trump's going to turn it around for America. And then we just need a leader now in our country to turn it around. So I'm waiting now for that person to come along.
Well, let's leave that there because you never know, that leader might be coming down the pipeline for us to save us, for us to support, to do the things that we know need doing. But we don't know if that person, we may not know that person's name yet. Let's leave that there. Jason, it's been great talking to you again. And let's do this again soon.
Yeah, it'd be great to keep in touch with you. You've got the MBE title as well. Well done for that. I have read up on you, and congratulations. What you've done for people. So I'm a giving person as well, and I've got a caring attitude. And Nick, if I can just end, I find it very disheartening when I'm called a racist. It's like, all these names that are thrown at me, I'm nothing of them. None of them, none of those names. It's quite hurtful what some people say to you.
But those names are meaningless now. So,
but it's not very nice people saying these things.
They're meaningless. They don't mean anything anymore. So don't worry about those words because they're not worth worrying about. Because if me and you are racist and Hitler and Nazis, then those words are meaningless. And that's how I look at it now.
I'm a live and let live person, Nick. I treat people as they treat me. And that's all. And that's how I lead my life. That's how I go about my life. But it's been, as I said, it's been really good talking to you. And maybe I could have gone into a few more things about immigration, but obviously, I still have to be very careful on what I say.
Of course,
on public or in social media. So, yes,
that's great. Thank you much for coming on, and I'll speak to you again.
Thanks, Nick.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.